Hey, Gong Zi Fa Sai. Happy New Year of the Snake. And Chinese or Asian New Year's are lunar calendars. So they start when the sun and moon are in their new cycle, dark cycle, and it's always in Aquarius season. That's why you Capricorns have to look at the year before, no matter what those placemats say in your favorite Chinese or Asian restaurant. The point is that this year of the wood snake, and the here is the chart of the new year as well. But the big deal is that snakes, just imagine that we've had a whole year of the dragon, chimera, composite animal, talons, scaly, fire breathing, whatever, and you're flying. So there's a lot of freedom going on, right? And now you're grounded. Yeah, let's breathe and feel that, right? So the snake is that integration of our masculine and feminine, because the snake does have a phallic energy to it, but it's also sinewy, and it gets in and out of places, and so there's a masculine feminine energy. And in Western world, we got the whole Adam and Eve geocentric kind of reality. But when we look at the planet as a whole and we look at ourselves as galactic beings, then the snake takes on a whole nother meaning. And with the fact that this year began with Uranus stationary, the ruler of Aquarius. And Uranus is sort of like the problem child. He's the attention deficit disorder mixed with disruptive genius, but also oppositional defiance. And yeah, these are all labels, but Uranian energy comes in and says, hey, look, let's question authority. Let's radicalize ourselves. Let's get to the root of whatever is going on. And Uranus, without Saturnian structures, okay, and with the fact that Pluto is in Aquarius since November 16th, 19th, so about the last couple of months, and then we've got this new moon in Aquarius, and Mercury is there, and Ceres is there, and Ceres and Pluto, they have their own dynamic because Pluto snatched Ceres' daughter. Translation: structures are changing. Lightning strikes and structures are changing in direct proportion to your resistance or your attachment to the conditioning. And both the dragon and snake year in Asian or Feng Shui lore goes to the wealth, the prosperity corner. So, what really matters? You know what? And the pun is intended because a lot of times we think prosperity and we immediately go to bank account. And if you are Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, or if Saturn is really strongly placed in your chart, then yes, you may have a more propensity to want to radiate your solar energy, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, to what matters, to the earth, to the physical world. And that doesn't make you any less spiritual than the fire sign beings that are here radiating their own individualized spirits, the Aries, Leo, and Sag. It just makes you want to count the cost, puns intended. So, but we're all 12 signs. So this year with the stationary direct, excuse me, Uranus in really earthly Taurus, he goes into Gemini on July 7th this year. That's where Uranus was when our nation was birthed in 1776 in Gemini. So we can see the freedom of thought, the freedom of money exchange, cryptocurrencies, and fiat money, and just the whole kit and caboodle. Executive orders up the yin yang, no pun intended there. But the point is that we're all looking at these last 6 years or so with Uranus and Taurus and seeing where we've been overly attached to things. Now, Tracy Chapman's Mountain of Things just rediscovered me from her 1988 debut album. And if you don't know, Mountain of Things, Tracy Chapman, Aries. God, I just made this 50-track playlist. And if you want it, let me know in the comments and I'll, link it to you on Aries, Leo, and Sag women. Boy, it's a great track. I mean, a great playlist. But the point is that Uranus has been dislodging or basically striking like lightning bolts to get us to think differently, to create different neural pathways about how we see money, how we see prosperity. And the snake year is definitely where we unhinge our jaws like a snake, take on a large amount of information, and then slither off to our lairs and allow ourselves to assimilate and bring into our heart, because it is said snakes know heart. So let's understand that. And then this chart in front of us, 2025 begins with Mars in retrograde until February 23rd. And if you want to see him in the early morning light, he'll be in the Western hemisphere, or the Western horizon, a little bit above the horizon, about 3, 4 in the morning if you're one of those night owls. And then sunset, Venus is in the Western skies. And so we've got both of these planets saddling really close to the earth, goddess of love, joy, and equilibrium, and then the god of war, and he's out of bounds. So what's going on is that we may feel like, let me move this way. I've got Lucy and Charlie Brown, he's trying to kick the football. We may feel like the quintessential Sisyphus, that we're just rolling up a ball uphill for it to roll back down. And I know as a traumatized, generational, uh, African American, Black individual does feel like that when it comes to DEI and where we are, that the ball has been rolled up the hill only for it to roll back down. Point is that from the ego perspective, that's what it looks like. But every time we reevaluate, look at a retrograde planet, and they're more powerful when they're stationary direct or stationary retrograde. That's why Uranus is really powerful this year in Taurus, because he is stationary in the sky, and he won't go to retrograde until September 5th, and I'll say July 7th again. And as a generational planet, right? Uranus, Neptune, and dwarf planet Pluto are generational. 7, 14 years for your Neptune, and then Pluto can be anywhere from 12 to 30 years, depending on his elliptical orbit. So the Uranian and Gemini that we will get to from July 7th on until around November, I believe, is about the freedom of thought, our neural pathways mutating. And it will affect all of us, let's be clear, but those people who are early in the mutable signs, the Geminis, and by early, I mean not so much cuspal, but March 20th, 21st, and then Virgo, 90 days later, early Virgo, early Sagittarius, early Pisces, you may have these so-called accidents. But remember, he's in Gemini. So it may just be a transformation or disruption of the way you think about yourself, the way you communicate, the way you label yourself. And that'll make our Mercury retrogrades, during this time really fascinating. And, let's talk a little bit about retrograde. So now we just have Mars and Jupiter in retrograde, soon to be joined by Venus on March 1st. And what all of this means is that as we review our ability to assert ourselves, where we're toxically projecting our Mars energy. I don't care what you're doing below the navel. We all have Mars energy. When we take agency and say, my, what is important to me, and we act on it. And I'm really wanting to integrate more of knowing the male energy of action, knowing it, but acting from the yin or the female side. Yeah. Wholeness is the goldness, and there's our raw material coming up for review for all of us, right? So, our raw material being a whole self monitoring practice, water and physical movement and 12 pillars, our raw material can energize and embody these energies and not get so caught up in our left hemisphere of our brains. So, the point around this particular new moon, it's not just the year of the snake and the freedom of thought from Aquarius, but preparing, getting our hearts and our sense of connection together for the approximately 40 days that Venus will be retrograde from Aries, about the 10th, 11th degree of Aries, backing back up into Pisces. And why this is important right now until, April 12th is that when we look at this new moon, we've got Venus conjunct. So personal love and equilibrium, my values, my sense of worth, how I choose to consciously share myself. Venus. And remember, Venus Aphrodite slept with mortals and gods alike. So even in that whole patriarchal religious overview or overlay, Venus had agency. I even see her as more transgendered, right? But that's a whole, I'll do a master class or something on it. But for the sake of right now, with Venus aligned with Neptune, basically for the next several months, because Neptune goes into Aries on March 30th, right in the middle of the Venus retrograde. So our personal love is aligned with transpersonal love, the Christ consciousness, the true alchemy of our authentic intelligence, of our multidimensional, our fourth dimensional, anahata unstruck heart. Remember, I said snakes no heart. So this year is about the wisdom, not just the knowledge, which you think you know about love. Because they say if you think you're in love or you doubt you're in love, then you're not in love. And what the fuck does in love mean, right? The Venus Neptune says that I never lost. I continually seek the source of love, the cosmic harmony, the attracting principle is within. And so I diminish or illuminate the ego boundaries, the Maya, the illusion that we're separate in the first place. So Aquarius new moon says, let's align our ideals to be inclusive. Yes, that's pillar 11 in our raw material. The Pisces is let's understand the wholeness, that we're all rooted and connected. And when we come from that intention, okay, then we attract differently. Our frequencies are different. I mean, yesterday, just to give you a quick example in my own life, yesterday I had an appointment that I rescheduled 3 times. And it was yesterday at the very last degrees with the moon in Aquarius. Uranus is stationary. I parked where I normally park, but I didn't pull back enough on truths. And a truck scraped the front of my car. And if I hadn't rescheduled the appointment, I wouldn't even have been there. And so I surmised that this accident, which Uranus rules accidents, yes, everything happens for our evolution, and accidents can only occur on the physical plane. It was really for the client. So she could see in her Capricorn earthy reality how I handled an immediate loss. That I didn't go, oh, Dios míos. I just said, to be taken care of. And it is being taken care of as we speak. So just understand the wisdom and the linear energy of gain and loss. Zoom out as all Aquarius energy wants us to do. And the dragon year was about us zooming out. The snake year is about us zooming in and living our limitations, and then paradoxically knowing that we're not limited. So there's a groundedness, there's an enjoyment of sensuality and taking your time and really knowing and expressing your heart. Thanks for listening.